More than half of high-growth companies struggle with the sales development process. If you want your sales team to have more at-bats with decision-makers at target accounts, talk to Inside Sales Team, the sales development team experts at InsideSalesTeam.com.
You're listening to the Sales Development Podcast, the only audio forum focused and dedicated 100% to sales development. If you care about growing your skills and getting more new sales appointments, pipeline, and closed-won deals, you came to the right place. Subscribe to the show on YouTube, iTunes, or Spreaker, and be sure to go back and listen to all the episodes for the best strategies, tips, and tactics out there on running a high-performance sales development program. And now, your host, founder, and CEO of Tenbound at Tenbound.com, David Delaney.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast. I am very excited about our guest today. This is Mr. Amit Bendov, who's the co-founder and CEO of Gong.io. Amit, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, David?
Oh, I'm excellent. I have been watching your space for quite a while now. Very interested in what you guys are doing. And this is from my heart. I am really excited to talk with you, learn about what you're doing, how you came to be solving this problem for us. And, you know, what I want to start with, I always start with, if folks aren't familiar with Amit and your background, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be solving the problem that you are now at Gong.io.
All right. So first, I'm also very excited to be here, David. And Gong is the fourth company that I'm leading, and I've always been in technology companies. I was one of the founding team members of Click Software, brought it from a zero to an IPO on NASDAQ. I was the VP of marketing and sales at a company called Panaya in the ERP SaaS space, and CEO of Sisense in the cloud business intelligence space. And most of my time ran sales and marketing teams. And the idea for Gong came after seeing the amount of investment that we're doing in marketing, generating leads, having a pretty disciplined operation, and a lot of it just goes to waste as soon as it gets to actually people getting on a phone and talking with customers. In a nutshell, there are two levers that you can pull to have more deals. You can have more leads, or you can have better conversations. Gong is dealing with the second, which we saw that there are a lot of ways that you can get more leads, a lot of tools, a lot of money is going that way. We just wanted to have better conversations so people can close more deals.
Okay, very interesting. And a lot of the folks, as I mentioned, that listen to this are in the sales development world. So they're kind of that connective tissue between events and marketing and the top of the funnel, and making sure that everything is, properly followed up on, and they're talking to enough folks to set up those appointments for salespeople. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the sales process and, how Gong actually helps with ensuring that those calls are maximized. Because on the sales development side, we work so hard to set up the calls, and then a lot of times we hand those off and walk away. We don't really know what happens after that. So how does Gong help with the salespeople when they're actually running those calls?
Okay, so it helps in a number of ways. So first, from a sales development perspective, it is very easy for an SDR to see what happened on a call, right? Often there's like either a disagreement or misunderstanding, or nobody has the time for proper feedback. With Gong, you just click and listen to the key parts of the conversation and see exactly, was it qualified? Was there a next step? What were the obstacles? And, is what I've heard on my calls in SDR is similar to what the salespeople heard on their call. So that puts literally everybody on the same page, okay? So that's just connecting two separate functions. In terms of the salespeople, Gong provides insights, either on a call-by-call basis, on an aggregate basis, how you can improve your pitch, okay, so you can convert more deals. It does it by comparing the top performers to the average performance and shows what the differences are. It gives insights about every call, how you can minimize your talk time, how you can say the right things, and how do you handle objections. And it also finally allows to share calls within the company so people can learn from each other.
Right. And so it's got applicability beyond sales, right? Because as I was looking into it, product people can listen in to see what the salespeople are saying, and customer success can listen in to see, what's going on. So it also kind of connects other departments, right?
Absolutely. This is the voice of the customer, and we have a lot of product people that are addicted to listen to calls. It's always very challenging for them to get on a sales call, but Gong is very easy, and it can pick the ones that are interesting. If a competitor was mentioned, or product features, or any product feedback. And customer success, absolutely. First, this is like the continuation of the sales process, so they can listen to everything that was promised or expected by that customer, and they also use it for their own calls. So about half of our customers use Gong across the board for sales development, for sales, and customer success.
Okay, great. So let's then focus more on the sales development side, because I would think that would be really tricky. As a sales development manager, I really want to know why some people are so much better on the phone than others, and some people can open up those dialogues better than others, and what are the top performers doing on the sales development team. But at the same time, it's got to be weird to just call somebody up out of the blue, like a cold call, and it being recorded, because there's different laws and things like that. And I'm sure you get these questions all the time, but how does that work with making cold calls or, following up on leads and things like that?
Okay, so first, it doesn't always work. So that there are cases where it's not applicable. If asking for consent does not make sense, it's hard to, pick up the phone and say, hey, would you mind before we start that I record this call? So there are several solutions. First, you could, in calls where you need a two-party consent or a multiple all-party consent, you can record just the salesperson, and there's quite a bit that you can learn just from what the salesperson is saying. And in states where you need one-party consent, then you can record both parties. There are other techniques to do it, but you should know that it's not appropriate for all calls. But in most cases, you should be able to record at least the salesperson, and in a lot of cases, both sides.
Gotcha. Okay. And like you said, there's a lot that you can get from just that one side to see how many times they're saying and stuttering, and are they asking the right questions and things like that. And then does a software like yours kind of whittle it down for the manager so that they can just come in, boom, 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 listen to it, and then grab a few nuggets and then go into the one-on-one? Because I remember as a manager, a daily manager, all of our calls were being recorded, at least one side, but it was just, hours of game tape, and that I didn't have time to go through everything. And I think that with Gong, you can speed up that process, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So first, about the recording themselves, you can learn a lot from just a salesperson. One technique that's actually useful in more than one way is paraphrasing, which is always a good idea. So for example, if I understand correctly, what you're telling me that your problem is that you don't have visibility into your cash flow. Okay, so that already puts like a lot of information, and it's also good sales technique. In terms of the insights, it is very easy. You could set up alerts and reports for different behaviors. Okay, for example, when we started our SDR team in our early days, I had an alert for calls that had a meaningful conversation that were taking like 10 minutes, but did not have concrete next steps. I would get an email, click on a call, quickly understand what was the issue over there. Did we just not do a good job enough convincing, or maybe this wasn't the right person, or maybe the lead wasn't qualified? So there are lots of calls, and it's very easy to find the needle in the haystack, the calls that are interesting and require some coaching and attention. If you want to know how your team is handling competitive differentiation, you could very easily set up an alert or a report that showed me all the calls where competitors were mentioned and didn't close. And finally, there are reports. Okay, it'll show you some aggregate information about topics that are trending, about the differences between the various people and how they're trending over time.
Inside Sales Team fully integrates with clients. CEO of Discover Org, Henry Schuck, partnered with us, and we've generated over $25 million in new business revenue.
They are firing on every best practice for running a sales development team.
Learn more at InsideSalesTeam.com.
Okay, so you can set up these reports. Are these reports that you can get out of the box from Gong, or are these like custom reports that your customers usually set up?
Totally. Everything is out of the box. I mean, they become more meaningful once you have a good amount of data. I mean, they work from day one, but I wouldn't look at them in day one, just once you have a little more data.
Okay. That's amazing. Okay, so because, again, like I said, one of the main things that kind of kept me up at night as a sales development manager is, why do we have such a wide variation across the team of effectiveness? And, I couldn't sit there all day and listen to actually what they were saying on the phone. And when I look at something like Gong, it's shortening the time frame that it would take to sit there all day, taking notes, coaching, listening, and that type of thing, right?
Yeah. So first, it clearly shows you what are the differences between the people and makes it actionable. So people can actually coach themselves how they can get closer to the top performers. And second, I think you're touching on a second point versus there's a lot of live coaching that is going on, okay, versus coaching by recording that I personally find is at least 10 times more efficient for a number of reasons. First, when you listen live, you don't know what you're going to be hearing. I mean, you could sit for an hour and just get dial tones and IVRs and voicemails. So there's not a lot there to coach. With recording, you can pick up calls that actually have meat on the bone and have coachable moments. So that's number one. Second, it's a lot faster to listen to a recorded conversation. We could speed it up. You could just pick up the interesting part. You can skip a lot of things that aren't interesting, and it'll take you a fraction of the time. And third, perhaps the most important one, it's like game tape. When you coach live, there could be disagreement on what actually happened. You say, you're saying a lot of ums and ahs, and the salesperson would say, no, I actually didn't. Okay, now you're arguing about what actually happened, okay, versus like the lesson to be learned. And with recording, like everybody can see the same thing. Okay, so now you could see the facts and not waste time on establishing a common understanding of what actually happened. So these are the three reasons that recorded call coaching eats live coaching for breakfast.
Nice. Exactly. And gosh, having the recording and being able to shrink down the time just to get that meat on the bone, that is so critical. I remember I had a sales manager once who would get on live chat, and as I was making sales calls would be live chatting me tips and things like that. And it was driving me nuts, It was just like I couldn't think because I was trying to read what they were saying and actually have a sales conversation. But if we can kind of boil it down to a few coachable points, go into the one-on-one, let's work on that moving forward, bang, bang, go. It seems like it's a lot more effective.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't listen to other people whispering in my ear when I'm having conversation. I'm not good with multitasking. And plus, it's always do it when it's, more a relaxed conversation. You're not in the heat of the moment and, trying to close the deal.
Exactly. Okay, this is really interesting. And this is kind of a love fest for Gong. I just, as a disclaimer, there are other products out there. I'm very interested in this space, but specifically what you've been working on, it's amazing the progress that you guys have made, and also in communicating the benefits of doing this type of coaching to the community. I know that Chris, I want to say his last name correctly, Orlob.
Yeah.
Chris Orlob, amazing product marketer, done a great job in communicating the message out to the community about how important this part of the process is, and the amazing work that you guys have been doing. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is the research that takes place, because you've got such a vast amount of data at your fingertips on what works with regards to the conversations and what doesn't work. And you've been sharing some of that research lately. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's the premise of Gong. I mean, it's like moving from theories and hypotheses and gut feelings to data. If you remember at the beginning of the conversation, there's a lot of science in marketing, and there's very little of that in sales. And that's what we have. We have a large research team, so we're 50 people, and we have 6 people on our research team and a data science team. So that's more than 10% of the companies. I can't think of any company our size that will allocate as much. And we're doing it, it's not for the marketing. We're actually doing for the product. They work in anything from natural language understanding, from comparing data, from understanding what are the things that drive deal closure, and tying it all together. And this is what we're building into the product. We are sharing things that are universal or true, that they work across a large number of companies. Okay, that, for example, we found that the optimal talk time is 46%. Okay, now for your company, you might benefit from a different ratio. I mean, it's always good to listen more than talk, but different types of call and different companies have, somewhat different dynamics, and this is what we sell. So universal data available. We're excited because this is getting a phenomenal response. People are very hungry, interested, and it's data that they have not seen before. So there is a good amount of appetite for the insight that we're providing. But this is a byproduct of what we're actually building into our engineering function.
Amazing. So there's over 10% of the company is just focused on, the research and the data. That's amazing. And I, it's funny. It just made me think. I was running a sales development organization that had 40 sales development reps. It had 3 sales development managers, and I asked to break off one headcount for a sales development rep to have your data research analytics person specifically assigned to the team, and I got laughed out of the office. And I'm going, it's nuts. We're kicking out so much data and research here. One person can't, grok all this information. You've got to have someone sort of as the navigator. So I can tell that we're on the same page in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather invest in a researcher, that creates data that first builds the product and second creates some inbound traffic versus in an SDR that would work hard with outbound cold calling. Okay, so I'd rather build a magnet than the guns.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds me of like those old Viking ships, that they had everyone rowing, and all the oars and everything are going in all these different directions, and you're just kind of going around in a circle, and they go, hey, get more people to, do the oaring. And
yeah.
I'm going, wait a minute, guys. We gotta break this thing down first and then build it back up. But anyways, I respect that. And like I said, the research that's coming out from you guys is just it's just eye opening. And I feel like it's two trends coming together in that it used to be there was field sales, and then kind of inside sales was more of the appointment setting SDR function. But now you can close pretty big deals from the phone and over online. And so there's a tremendous amount of data being produced, and it opens up opportunities for companies like yours to take the data and push the practice forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I always considered, I think I'm one of the first people, in almost 10 years ago, I had one of the first that actually had SDR teams, and I considered it an upstream sales team. This is not easier. This is not something that you do as a junior to get to like an account executive. It is an art and a craft and a science and something you should master.
Oh, man. I wish, I know that we're up against the clock. I wish we had more time because we just recently had the Sales Development Conference in San Francisco. It was the first conference focused and dedicated 100% to sales development. And in my speech at the beginning, that's what I talked about, in that it's not a bus stop. It's not a a way station on the way to something else. It's a critical strategic imperative that we really need to start taking more seriously. So we'll make that part 2 of our conversation, Amit.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I had SDRs that worked for me for 3 years. because we built a career progression. We always like honed the craft, and it wasn't something that you do as a bus stop, as you said.
Right, because it's too important. I mean, if you think about it, there's appointments, there's sales pipeline, and there's closed won business, and they all kind of cascade down the funnel. So if we're not laser focused on the first part, which is getting appointments, then, for example, with how Gong is analyzing the sales calls, if we don't have, new sales appointments, there's not going to be any sales calls to analyze. So
exactly.
It's a critical strategic imperative. And like I said, you're up against the hour. This has been super interesting. I want to keep talking to you. We'll do a part 2. If folks want to get in touch with you, get a demo, should they just go over to gong.io?
Yeah, gong.io, or you could connect to me at LinkedIn, Amit Bendov. There aren't a lot of us out there, and then you'll get like all the posts and the updates and the data.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, definitely. You want to get on that list. Follow him on Twitter and LinkedIn as well to get those posts from Chris, because you'll learn a lot. I learn a ton from the content you guys are putting out. So Amit, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Development Podcast, the only audio forum 100% focused and dedicated to sales development, with your host, David Delaney. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube and take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. Your support makes our show possible. If you are struggling with your sales development program, contact us at tenbound.com for a no-obligation exploratory call. Again, that's tenbound.com.